What is the real root cause of everything? So this is where we can create health in our consciousness. Once we disassociate from that identity, we need to recreate that. So how do we recreate that frequency to a frequency of health? Hello, everybody, and welcome back to the Good Gut Feeling Podcast, where we digest modern medicine with old world wisdom. And today we have another great topic that you really can change the way that you look at health right away. We can change our approach to health and even our approach to life's challenges, which include health for many people, right away, because it's very different from the way I was trained. Very different, but this is what actually helped me heal, and now I help many people with this process. Before we jump right in, just a couple of words. Today's episode is for educational purposes only and is not medical advice from your doctor. Let's jump right in. What is the real root cause of everything? What changes everything? Because we know that we have diagnoses. And the medical diagnoses are categories of symptoms that people get labeled with in order to facilitate a treatment, billing. It's a language for how people get labeled, treated, and prognosed. So if someone has a chronic disease, could be an autoimmune disease, could be Crohn's or ulcerative colitis, could be liver disease, could be anything. The root cause is very different from how it manifested. And we can say, okay, well, the root cause is a abnormally functioning immune system. Well, what caused that to happen? Well, that was caused by bad food. But what was the reason? What was in that bad food that actually caused that? And if we start to break it down to the smallest and the smallest and the closest root cause and the closest root cause, we get to vibrations, frequency, and energy. How do we really explain that? We can explain it with physics. There was a time that we looked at objects as parts, the wheels of a car and the doors, and the same thing as our bodies. Okay, we have an arm and a leg and a torso and an eye, and then the science progressed and we got microscopes, and the next big discovery in physics was Einstein, who said, okay, energy, E equals mc squared. So energy and matter are interchangeable by a certain formula. So we're now saying that people are not just an arm and a leg, and the world is not just a piece of wood and a cup of water, or we are much more than that. There is an energy, and that energy is related to the matter, and that energy and matter have a relationship. And then we get to quantum physics, quantum mechanics, and there we see at the smallest level, at the tiniest level that exists, which is the subatomic level, matter and energy are not so concrete. We are far more energy than we are matter. The energy takes a larger portion of the atom, and the matter, the mass of it, is actually not so clear. It's not like if you and I both look at a wall and we can both say that wall is white, this is how big it is, this is how tall it is. No. Actually, the mass of the particles change based on the observer. So what I see is not what you see. Our perception of an object, in this particular case, a very tiny particle, changes the particle. How does that pertain to health? How can we utilize that for health? How can we take advantage of that to heal and to prevent disease? And this is where consciousness, frequencies, and energy healing comes in. At the end of the day, at a very basic level, we are all frequencies. And there's different frequencies for our body when we're in a state of health, when we're in a state of disease, when we're in a state of stress, when we're in a state of joy, when we're in a state of love. And there's emotions that have different frequencies associated with them. So a state of love, a state of joy, a state of gratitude is a high frequency that's associated with health. And then we have lower frequencies like guilt and shame and anger. Root cause healing is changing the vibration. So how do we change the vibration? How do we change our frequencies? The number one way, so number one is consciousness. So this is where we can create health in our consciousness. And by changing our consciousness to the right frequency, we can change that in our physical world, in our physical body, in how we relate to people. For example, and this is very important, if someone has an illness, it is extremely important that they don't identify as a sick person. So they can be a person who has an imbalance in their body. And if we actually go back to the traditional systems, there's no diagnosis. If someone has an imbalance of their energy, that someone has something is too much, too little, not enough. So that's a very, very important distinction from a person who is a diseased person. And we see that very frequently, unfortunately. And when people say, I am a blank patient, it's very important to disassociate from that identity. Number two, once we disassociate from that identity, we need to recreate that. So how do we recreate that frequency to a frequency of health? And this is where energy healing comes in. Meditation is a type of energy healing, and it's vital to do at home. Visualize yourself like a healthy person, but not only visualize yourself like a healthy person. How does it feel to be healthy? And how would you feel if you were healthy? Would you be happy? Would you be joyful? Would you be active? So feel that emotion. So you see yourself healthy. So whatever that is, if right now you are debilitated, you can't get out of bed, visualize yourself walking around, going to the store, seeing your friends, going for a run, whatever that is. But it's very important to also attach it to an emotion. And when you attach it to the emotion and the visualization, you can change that frequency and create health from the root cause. This is where traditional systems can come in. Energy healing systems that can change the consciousness. Work we do here also does that. Traditional Chinese medicine, acupuncture. Acupuncture doesn't treat a diagnosis. If you go to a traditional Chinese medicine doctor, they will put needles in certain points, but they don't put needles in a point of a diagnosis. They put a needle where there's energy flow that's blocked. So the energy is allowed to flow, and by the energy flowing, it restores health to the body. How does nutrition fall into this? Because we know food is medicine. I've talked about this a lot. You've heard about it everywhere. Food is a big part of health, although not something we're taught so much in medical school, but it's really the fuel for our body. And how does that fall into it? Well, let's think about the foods that are good for us. The foods that are good for us are the foods that come from a healthy soil, from a natural environment, or animals that are treated well, that are eating the right foods, that are happy, that are in their natural state. Those foods are vibrating at a higher frequency. But think about an animal that's tortured their whole life. And this is the majority of the animal food industry. The animals are tortured, the animals are fed horrible foods, the animals are sick and they stress, and then we eat them. Well, that animal is not vibrating at a high frequency, and that's the food that we're gonna put into our body. So we want the foods that are vibrating at the right frequency. The foods that are grown in the way that they function best. So it's a healthy soil. It's a soil that's nutritious. It's not added with man-made chemicals. So when we eat foods that resonate with our frequency, and this is another important concept, is food is medicine, so it needs to be personalized. There are some concepts, yes, there are foods that are made in a factory that changes the food to a point where you don't recognize where it came from, are not universally good for anyone. Let's say we have good healthy foods, naturally derived foods, unprocessed foods. How do we know which is the right one? And this is where personalized medicine comes in, when we can say, okay, well, if you are experiencing these symptoms, maybe it would be good for you to eat this kind of food or that kind of food. And the green vegetables are good to help detoxify the body, and the high fiber foods are good if you're constipated. But at the root level, it's really which foods are vibrating at the frequency that we need, that are resonating with our frequency. So at the root cause, when we really dissect it, yes, we need to do all the good lifestyle things. We need to exercise. We need to have good relationships. We need to eat foods that are natural and healthy and are derived from a good place. And we need to detoxify, we need to avoid toxins. But what is that foundation of it? When we get to the root level, when we get to the real root cause, it comes down to the frequency. Because even sunlight, we've been told sun is bad, always wear sunscreen, but there are frequencies in the sun that are actually really good for us. Especially the sunlight in the morning has a reddish hue, and those lower frequency lights are actually better for us than the higher frequency blue lights. So it's really about vibrating at the right frequency. Light is a very clear manifestation of it. The blue lights, the artificial lights, are really not great for us. So we see a lot of people wear these glasses, the blue blocker glasses, those yellow looking glasses that block the blue light. The reddish lights are good for us. So people go into the red saunas. At the end of the day, it all comes to frequency, because it's not just about light. It's also about the foods and our thoughts and our emotions and our experiences and the people who are in our lives that ultimately create health or disease. If you like this content, please find us on wholegut.com. Stay healthy, stay gutsy, and I look forward to seeing you all next week.